What if the greatest war you'll ever fight is not against an external enemy, but against the fortress you've built around yourself? A fortress of comfort. We are told to seek this comfort. But what if it is nothing more than a gilded cage? What if the door has been unlocked this whole time, but you have been sedated by the siren's call of cheap pleasure, too numb to even test the handle? The misery of an unconquered life is a quiet plague. It doesn't rage, it corrodes. It is the familiar acid of dishonor on a Sunday evening. It is the silent bitterness you taste when another man lives the life you only dare to imagine. It is the deep, unshakable knowledge that you were forged for more. We are fed the lie that growth happens at the edge of comfort. This is a falsehood. Growth and comfort are opposing forces. One must be sacrificed for the other. In this transmission, we will dissect the stories of those who shattered their own cages. This is not a collection of hollow platitudes. This is the unvarnished truth of what it takes to forge an iron will from the ashes of your former self. These are the chronicles of men who declared war on their own weakness, who faced the profound agony of change and emerged reforged. Meet Alex. For a decade, Alex was a man marching in lockstep with the crowd. He held a respectable title in a marketing firm, a position that paid for his predictable life, a life that appeared successful to the untrained eye. His existence was a repeating pattern of convenience, streaming services, and the hollow glow of a screen. But within him was a dormant warrior, a masterful illustrator whose weapons, his sketchbooks, had gathered dust for years. His true mission was relegated to a folder on his machine labeled Someday. Someday was Alex's favorite retreat. Someday, the fire would return. Someday, he would break ranks and forge his own path. Someday, he would build the body and mind of a creator. His comfort was the anesthetic that dulled the shame of his own inaction. He was living in a state of perpetual retreat. The shattering of his world was not a heroic battle. It was a quiet execution. On a company-wide call, his name, his entire division, was erased from an organizational chart. His decade of loyal, comfortable conformity was terminated. The fortress of security he had built his identity upon crumbled to dust in an instant. That night, the Someday folder mocked him from his laptop screen. He saw the truth. Comfort had not been a shield. It had been a waiting room for oblivion. He had surrendered his security to an entity that saw him as a number on a spreadsheet. Something inside him broke that night. Not in despair, but in the way a dam breaks to unleash a flood. He found his dusty sketchbook, and for the first time in an age, he struck. The lines were clumsy. The work was a pale shadow of his potential, but it was an action. His resolution was not a grand campaign. It was a single, unbreakable rule. He called it the first strike. 1 page, every single day. Before the noise of the world could infect his mind, he had to win this first skirmish. The initial weeks were a crucible. His mind, conditioned for the easy dopamine of consumption, screamed for retreat. His inner critic, the great saboteur, hissed that his work was worthless, that he was a fraud. But he clung to the rule of the first strike like a man holding a line. He embraced the excruciating discomfort of the blank page. He drew when the fire was low. He drew when exhaustion commanded him to surrender. He drew when he felt the full weight of his own inadequacy. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tide of the war began to turn. One page became two. His hand remembered its strength. The characters locked in his mind began to breathe on the page. This keystone habit, this daily victory, began to bleed into every other theater of his life. He started waking an hour earlier, not out of obligation, but to prepare the battlefield. He replaced takeout with fuel, steeling his body for the creative war ahead. He was no longer a casualty of the corporate world. He was an illustrator. This was his new identity, forged not by a title handed to him, but by a daily, disciplined act of creation. 6 months later, Alex secured a contract to illustrate a children's book. The pay was a fraction of his old salary, but he had never felt more powerful. His transformation was not about the destination. It was the realization that true security is not external. It is the internal, unbreakable knowledge that you possess the discipline to build, and if necessary, rebuild a life of your own design. You do not need a cataclysmic event to begin. You need only a decision. This is the battle plan they all followed. First, identify the target. Be brutally honest. What are you retreating from? What path of least resistance is keeping you caged? A difficult conversation? A blank page? An early alarm? Name the one thing that defines the border of your current fortress. That is your first objective. Second, find your banner. Discipline without a why is merely punishment. You need a reason so powerful it can pull you through the fire when your will falters. Like Maya's vow to her sister, your why must be an emotional standard, not just a logical one. Write it down. Look at it every day. It is the fuel for your campaign. Third, the Keystone Strike. Do not try to win the entire war at once. That is a framework for failure. Choose one, and only one, non-negotiable daily action, like Alex's single page. The goal is not to finish. The goal is to begin. Victory in this one, small skirmish, will build the momentum to win others. Fourth, seize command. This is the cornerstone. Stop blaming your past, your circumstances, your enemies. Your life today is the sum of your choices and your retreats. This is not about shame. It is about power. The moment you accept absolute command is the moment you reclaim the power to change your fate. Fifth, forge your identity. Your identity is the story you tell yourself, reinforced by cold, hard proof. Ben stopped being the guy who takes it easy and became the guy who does hard things. Maya stopped being a survivor and became the architect of her future. Start telling yourself a new story, then act your way into making that story an undeniable truth. I asked at the beginning if your comfort zone was a cage. The stories of these warriors prove that it is, but they also prove the door is unlocked. The key is not found, it is forged. That tool is discipline. Discipline is not about hating the man you are. It is about having enough respect for the man you could become that you are willing to sacrifice the momentary comfort of now for a future of victory. It is the ultimate act of self-command. It is the bridge between the man you are and the man you were born to be. The choice is between the comfort of your conformity and the challenge of your potential. If you are ready to stop being a prisoner in a life of comfort and start being the architect of a life of purpose, your war begins now. And if you seek more strategies to conquer your own mind, subscribe and join the ranks of men who command their own fate.